All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Developer Dynasty here on our Wolverine Studios Twitch channel. Tonight we're talking Draft Day Sports College Football 2021, which as of last Saturday went into first access mode. We'll give everybody a reminder on what that is once we get started here. But as always, before we begin, I'd like to thank our followers. The followers continue to grow on our channel. Especially we've got Coop Savage and Shaka the Beast, who are new followers I see on our list. So welcome to you guys. And of course, huge thanks as always to our subscribers, whether they're subscribing, out of their own pocket for our content that we're putting out right now, or they're using the free Twitch Prime sub you can get every month. If you've linked your account to Amazon Prime, you can have a free sub every month, and we appreciate those who use it and renew it on our channel every month. We got Brooks here with us tonight. Brooks, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
So Brooks has been very hard at work this past week with I think we've had 5 builds now for First Access this past week. For anybody who doesn't know what First Access is, it is our version of the a pre-order. So you can go to our website. I'll throw that in the chat box for you at wolverinestudios.com. Once you get there, you can pre-order the game. There's a discount code in the web store there that you can use to save on the pre-order. You'll get a free Steam key later on if you want the game on Steam when it's available, and you'll also be able to immediately download and play the latest beta builds all the way up through release. And then, of course, at release, you just grab the most recent build and any builds that follow after that point. So, and during this first access process, it is a beta. You are playing beta builds. There are things that need to be corrected. Sometimes things won't work right in your associations, or you may have to restart an association. In maybe a case of a really bad error. But I don't think we've had any sort of issues that have been too heavy at all in the first week of first access. So we will be quickly moving to the release stage. So if you want to pre-order, make sure you get that in as soon as you possibly can, because I don't think this will be a long first access period. The things seem to be going pretty well, right, Brooks?
So far, so good. I mean, we had a little bit more time up front with a small little beta program where I had some folks who were helping at least get some of the more obvious issues out of the way first. So it allows people in first access to jump in and play the game. And we've had a couple of issues that we've had to fix and a couple of screens that weren't up to par, but we're able to quickly get through those and start moving on to some of the good ideas that the folks in the community are throwing at us. So I'm having fun going in and updating.
Yeah, I think there's I've been deep in the weeds on college basketball 2021, so I haven't seen a lot of the feedback myself. I know the fix lists that have been coming through that we've been posting, they've all seemed like mostly useful, just additions and suggestions, maybe some minor tweaks of some things here. But for everybody listening, if we'll cover some of the things that have been added here tonight. But if you have feedback, if you have questions, if you have comments based on things either you've seen in our streams or the experiences you've had in first access, please put them in the chat box, and we'll talk about them here. Brooks, is there anything that I know the player card? I know there are some additions to there, so we can start there. Let me find a guy we can pull up here. I know one of the
One
things.
of the more recent.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the more recent requests was to fix up the editing of these players so that you can do things like pick their high school. So in the edit, we've added that. There's also been some asks to show the high school and their city and state where they're from, as well as their recruit rank and their star rating. just on this list. And some of this stuff shows when they're on rosters, and some of it shows slightly differently when they're in recruit phase. But we tried to add, the more college appropriate data to these fields so that people can enjoy them. And then when you go in and edit, now there's a way to pick the high school. It wasn't as easy as I had hoped it would be, and I suspected that. That's why we haven't had it in past versions. Mainly because there are 21,000 high schools that I have loaded into the system, and that causes some issues. And again, I pulled this from some census data, years ago, and there's you got detention centers, and you got all girls colleges or all girl high schools, and different things like that in there. The game actually uses the census data to figure out which of these schools are larger and which are smaller, so that you get a more representative view of recruits as they come into the game. So a lot of these are one-offs that you may find one out of 1,000 kids that will show up in these things over multiple years. So they're in there just because they're real places, and I didn't want to limit it to any. For all we know, some of our favorite users or folks want to put their own schools in there, and they may have gone to some of these really small, highly technical, whatever high schools, and just they want to be able to put them in a game, so they're all there. That causes some issues with being able to change them out. So I got that in for this, either the patch or the one before, so that people are able to do that. So that's a fun thing where people can add a little bit more immersion to their recruit base.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. The college basketball game doesn't have nearly as many high schools loaded in, but it is fun. Even the ones I do have to. Whenever I see either a high school that the high school I went to, or a high school I coached at, or a high school I coached against when I was coaching high school basketball, it's fun to see those pop up in the game. So I think that's a really a cool addition. I noticed we had a question from Shaka the Beast. He says, "Will it be a possible functionality to play as an AD for a college? I would love to fire the head coach." That's a really interesting question and idea. It's not something that's in this round of the college games in either one of them, but I think that's kind of a fun idea maybe for the futures. Is I know we've talked about here, Brooks. Expanding maybe to be able in the future to be an OC or a DC. But what do you think of the idea of in the future maybe just being the AD and running the program as an option?
I think we kind of have that set up in sandbox mode, where if you really want to run these schools, you flip them over to human owned, and then you go ahead and run the school as you see fit. You can fire the head coach. You can do whatever you hire your head coach. You can do whatever you want there. It just doesn't track you as a person at that point.
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of the RPG elements of these games that we've never really got too far into. But it's there are always things like that on the list that we can look at. If the community pushes us in that direction, then we can look at enhancing those kinds of things. So it's certainly some good feedback.
Yeah, and I kind of I know there's been some suggestions of that for the college basketball game too. And again, I think that's something that's a possibility down the line. But I appreciate the suggestion and the question, Shaka the Beast, because it's it gives us a chance to respond to it and to kind of make a note that this is okay. This came up again. This came up for the third time. This came up for the 17th time. People are really interested in something like that. So I appreciate that. Anybody else, if you've got questions, comments, suggestions based on your own experiences with the First Access, just throw them in the chat box here, and we'll talk about them. We'll answer them. I know there was a little bit of work done on the coach card. So I pulled one of those up just because I like the name Fernando Ham. We've we found some interesting names in the college stream last week and in our WSBA stream this week. So it's funny to me to come across some fun names. But they have the ability to edit the coaches here. I'm going to pull that up. So why don't you, Brooks, tell everybody a little bit about what they can do with editing coaches here.
Yeah, so this page is mostly the same. We've updated it to allow them to change the recruiting rating, which was missing from before. Um, but this has really evolved a lot over the last couple of years as we put coaches in, because now you can change all their preferences, you can change their personalities, you can change their pictures, um, you know, their reputation. All of that stuff is all now editable. As we've gone further along, we've been able to unlock a bunch of these things, and these preferences will definitely change. The playbooks that they generate or their scenario preferences and run pass or blitz tendencies and things like that. So they definitely do have a significant effect in the game. So we wanted to be sure that we could allow folks to do this. And all of these are also part of the CSV, the import file that we set up for coaches. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the modders go after it and actually model out several of the real life college head coaches and see what they put for their different preferences and things like that, and see if we can get some of these teams to behave a little bit more like their real life counterparts as people have fun with the mod and tinker with things.
Yeah, that's something that I'm glad you brought that up. That was a really big addition, I thought, right at the end, the ability for the mod community to take that coach CSV file and be able to create. I hope to see that too. I hope that I know we had some great work done in the college basketball area on a coach mod file. I'm sure that we'll see our mod community step up and do something really amazing with that here in this game, because our mod community is just the best. I mean, they do so much for the game with logos, coaches, pictures, teams, it's just, and it's always ready to go. I mean, these guys are never like, yeah, we'll get to it later. They are ready on day one. I know the mods are already out for even during first access. They were that way for the pro launches that we had. So huge shout out to our modding community and everybody who who steps up and contributes to that in some way, shape, or form. I see Breeze.
Yeah, those guys are rearing to go.
Yeah, I know, they're great. Breeze is in the chat. He's always in our streams. Breeze, really great to see you again. He asks, how are the bowl games decided in football? So maybe if somebody's not too familiar with how the bowl game system works in here, Brooks, what are the options? How does it work?
Yeah, okay, before I answer that, could you go back to the previous screen? Because I did notice that there was something I added to this screen. I don't know if people noticed.
Sure.
There was some feedback on setting depth charts where this screen, while perfectly fine from a layout perspective, and it has some nice little things to view by formation and all that fun stuff, there's not an easy way to tell what quality or what setup or whatever you have of your roster when you're trying to do this. So we added this quick view here so that people are not having to switch back and forth between pages. I thought it was a real good, not really a suggestion, but there were some folks who were noticing that switching pages is a real pain. So by adding this little quick view here, it's a way for us to quickly show your current roster. Because with college specifically, it's not as big of a deal in the pros, because you know your depth chart pretty well in the pros. It's just
Right.
a smaller roster and you know who your free agent signings were and all that. But in college with 80 plus guys, man, trying to keep these guys all straight definitely could be a chore. So I was happy to add this in, and I think it turned out pretty decent.
Yeah,
when you're filling this out, you have a quick way of referencing your folks and that. So yeah, I wanted to point that out because I liked how that turned out. I was, it's another example of where somebody had a specific complaint, a valid one at that, and we had some suggestions on how to take care of it, and this is what I ultimately chose.
Yeah, that's
That worked out well.
a great addition to this, because I definitely would understand wondering, okay, how many guys do I have? Who do I have? It's tough to remember everybody with such a huge roster and roster turnover like you get in college. So that is a great addition here.
Yeah, and we've trained people over the years that the overall rating, while adequate to help delineate your players, it's not optimal. So it's definitely, the more advanced users are actually, you know, focusing in on particular ratings, particular player builds, so they could set up these packages and set up their offenses the way that they want. I think it's fantastic that they're looking to do that instead of just picking the highest overall player and then just running with it. So it's a neat feature. I'm glad we added it. Back to Breeze's question. So the bowls are. I'm going to answer it in two different ways. The bowls are driven by an XML file that is moddable. So if you're using the default bowls that the game comes with, um, they all kind of work the same way. There's a conference tie-in to bowls, and there are special team tie-ins. So like certain bowls will, like the Armed Forces Bowl, or those are just examples, will tend to try and pick a member of the armed forces because there's a specific tie-in for that. But otherwise, they go in order of a ranking in the XML file to determine, which bowls get to go first and second and third as they select, and they'll select from the conference as long as they're eligible teams. And if they run out of eligible teams for one conference, they'll go to at-large teams and pick that way. And I believe the real world mod is doing the same thing. They have a few more bowls because again, it's moddable. So they added a few more than what we ship with. And then that way they have slightly different conference tie-ins or slightly different focused game specific team tie-ins. So it works the same way. It just runs through the rankings of the bowls. The bowls pick in the order that they come by rank, and then they'll pick teams accordingly, and it usually turns out pretty realistic, I think.
Yep, and I see Dr. Dynastic in the chat. I just want to say a quick shout out to Doc. He was responsible for the quarantine back in March when everything got shut down, and ended up running the quarantine on Twitch, where they used Draft Day Sports College Basketball to sim out what would have happened had the season actually concluded, as best we could. It was a huge success, it was a lot of fun. So thanks, Doc, for that, and for stopping in our chat tonight. Appreciate seeing you here. All right, moving on to other editions. If if we have any questions or comments on First Access, guys, go ahead. Brooks, anything else that you're kind of looking at right now, working on, or what they might be able to expect in the next build?
Not specifically. There's always a couple things I hold close to the vest and don't divulge too much. But a lot of it is just folks playing the game. Like we have a couple of guys who are trying to set up some online leagues with it, and we're eager to see how that works. There's a couple of outstanding issues that guys are having. Some of these issues go back to the College Football 20 version, where I'm still working with them trying to find what scenarios they're running into that's causing some of the behavior that they see. We got some crossover things from the pro game into the college game that we're trying to figure out what the right way of fixing things are. Is it something specific with pro that I need to patch, or is it something that's in both games, in which case I'll fix it in college and import the same fix over to pro. So we're just kind of going through the forum posts, and we're going through the Slack list, and just basically taking care of as many issues as we can. And the larger ones obviously are a little tougher, and they tend to be ones that we're push out into a future release or a future version of the game, CF22 or whatever. We'll try to hit as many as we can while we're still in first access, for sure. Just because if it's reasonable and it's relatively straightforward to put things in, then we definitely want to put as much in as we can as folks are coming up with good ideas. The screen you're on now, we did add to the bottom right hand corner. Um, Instead of just being your current regular season schedule, it will actually add on your postseason games too. You'll see your conference championships, your bowl games, your playoff games, and whatnot, part of your team dashboard. There's little things like that that people are bringing up, and we'll take care of as many of them as we can.
All right, so Breeze had a question about training. Training is different in the college game than the pro game. You want to, for people who are new to the game, do you want to kind of go over what they can do on this training screen?
Yeah, so it actually does work, just like our pro game, where you set up a schedule, which has particular focuses, whether you're focusing on, physical attributes, or you're focusing on, athletic attributes, intelligence, or position skills, things like that. You pick your weights the way you want to weight your particular focus for that schedule, and then you just put people on those different schedules, and they will train throughout the year. So there are limits to training. Like if you put a max on all these values, you will overwork your players. They'll get frustrated. They'll start regressing. They'll have issues throughout the season. It'll affect morale or whatever. So you want to have a reasonable training schedule throughout the season. But these schedules also get put into place before training camps. So we use the schedules both ways. So there's some advanced users or whatever will have a season training schedule where they have their kids working on certain things, and then before training camps they'll switch the schedule over to something else, just to get a variety of training in on these kids, and that goes for both the program and the college game.
So Chicks23 asked an interesting question. He asked if there's a way to get a printable almanac like OOTP has for baseball. Feel like it would be cool to go back and see brackets and all that from the past years after going a few decades. Also, this would go with the ability to view past seasons, brackets, and bowls, and team-specific box scores and win-loss. I don't know, Brooks, how much of that kind of stuff, this sounds like a large project, but how much of that stuff are you tracking right now in here? And I'm not that familiar with, I haven't played Out of the Park. I know that's, I can't say that, but I haven't played Out of the Park in a long time. It's too busy actually working on our games. But, is that something that down the line we can look at and putting that together?
So if you go into the almanac, we do track all of that stuff. What we don't have is historical versions of it. So when you create a new league, it'll start tracking from that point on. We don't import like historical brackets or historical teams or any of those kinds of things. But we do track awards for every season. We track the playoff brackets and those kinds of things. So you can go back and see how the playoffs ended, championship games and whatnot. We try and preserve as much of this history as we can. We do most of it through this almanac screen.
Yep, and the college basketball game also has an almanac screen as well as team history screens where we store all those the old stats for every season. So I think a lot of that stuff, Chicks23 that you're looking for is in the game. It sounds like you're talking about something that OOTP prints outside of the game. So if you want to send me an example, you can submit it through our support site at WolverineStudios.com or whatever. I'll take a look at it and see if we can put something like that together in the future. But definitely in the game there is an awful lot of data that is stored. This season I have up is only just one season in, so there's no historical data in here, but it definitely there is a ton of stuff that you can go through in our games, and I think that's one of the most fun things that we do is with these the almanacs and the histories and the records and the recaps is going back after you've played a number of seasons to look things over and remember a guy you had 4 or 5 years ago and things like that. there's just so much detail that is kept through through the games, through in the opportunity to go back and relook at it. You can spend hours just once you get a league built up going back through that. And I know there's guys who have played like 50, 60, 70-year seasons in college basketball, and they just have these huge almanacs, and it's kind of fun to go look through them. And I'm sure the same things happened on the pro and college football games, Brooks.
Yeah, the other thing that we, or I try to pay attention to is making sure that all of this stuff gets exported. So the export within the game will export all of this stuff into CSV files in a lot of cases, and in some cases it will put it all into um, access databases. So the thought was that the more of this data we provide, the more extra mods or extra tools or reporting things or custom web pages or whatnot that folks can gravitate towards and have some fun, building some add-ons and some utilities like that. I remember back in the day you couldn't play some of these games without utilities. It just being able to export the data and view it and slice it and dice it in different ways was definitely something I enjoyed doing. And I know there are a lot of modders and a lot of utility creators out there that were as important to the game in the end as the game engine itself. So we definitely wanted to provide all that data, and as more and more people play these games and find those things, and we'll see what comes out of the community. I look forward to seeing what they can come.
Yep, and I've talked about how I sort of grew up on the front page sports games, and it's funny, one of the early utility guys for the football game was Sean Sullivan. And Sean, for anybody who doesn't know, is the developer of the AU platform that we've put all of we've put the big four that we have on the AU platform now, with college football 2021 getting there. And it's just funny to see how important Sean was to the development of front page sports football. And then of course he went on to do Pearson baseball, and now he's done a million other things outside of sports programming, stuff like that. But he's been working with us the past couple of years in developing this platform that we've been using. And of course he deserves a ton of credit for developing that platform and bringing it to us and allowing us to have the use of it to make these games look even better than they ever have before. And I think with the things that we're continuing to do and push the envelope and learn that we can do and share between the games, I think we're really getting up there. And it's not just us saying that. If you didn't know, Operation Sports did a fan poll for the top. They let fans vote for the top sim games of 2020. And it's no surprise that Out of the Park and Football Manager were the top two picks, but tied for third and fourth in that fan poll was Draft Day Sports College Football and College Basketball 2020. So it's such an honor for us to see how far we've come, that people are they consider our games right up there with Out of the Park and Football Manager. So that people are appreciating what we're doing here. And and it's awesome just to be recognized by the community for the work that we're doing. Brooks Breeze has one more question.
To be even mentioned with some of those big groups is pretty fantastic. And Dr. Dynasty even mentions bowl bound college football and all those things. And when I started this years ago, and before even more recently when you and I, Gary, joined forces, I never really thought that these games would take off the way that they have, and we have a real strong community and really enjoy continuing to work on these things and build them up and give people something fun to play, and they certainly are appreciative of it, and we're appreciative of them. So thanks, guys.
Before we go, I guess we take Breeze's question. Is there a combine for high school, college like the McDonald's All-American game for basketball? Oh, that's a basketball question. There's not, but we can talk about that on Tuesday, Breeze. Brooks, anything before we go that you want to say, or you want to ask people for feedback or anything heading into the next week of First Access?
I know, not that I can think of. Just participate. Put your questions on the forum. Join us on Slack. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there's things that you were hoping to see in these games, and we'll do our best to listen to the feedback and see what we can do with it.
Yep, and I encourage everybody who already has the game, make sure you're going to our forums at wolverinestudios.com. That is where we're posting, when there's a new build available. You just go back to the same download link that you got in your purchase email. But that's where we're letting you know that there's a new build available. So like I said, I think we're on the 5th one I just posted just recently. So keep going, keep updating, keep grabbing the new builds as we go. And then yes, Dr. Dynastic, the draft classes do export to the pro football game, or like we've talked about on some other streams, we've actually set them up so that the games can link directly with each other now, and it makes things just a lot easier for everybody else. They don't have to do a ton of manual work outside the games, and we're even working to pull the college data into the pro game if you link the leagues to view the college data in the pro game, so you don't have to keep switching back and forth. You have to play both of them to simulate both forward, but you don't necessarily have to go into the college game and look around to grab standings or stats or something like that. We're working on bringing that directly into the pro game so that you don't get that break in immersion when you're playing the pro game. You just feel like it's all one big game world that you're playing, and everybody seems to really like that idea. And we expanded on it this year in the pro game for basketball, and just added it into pro football this year. So that is gonna do it now, Doc. That's just my computer. It's loud. We have to we need more sales so we can buy a quieter computer, everybody. Okay, so get those pre-orders in. First Access is still going, so you can get to www.wolverinestudios.com. That is where you can exclusively pre-order Draft Day Sports College Football 2021. Thanks, Brooks, for taking time out of your busy dev schedule here as we get on our road to finishing up and getting to the final release. And thank you, everybody, for the great chat tonight. Doc, good to see you here. Thanks for sharing your channel with us tonight and introducing us to your followers, hopefully. And again, thank you to our followers and our subscribers who are supporting the channel. We'll end the stream with a Michigan touchdown that just took place here. So touchdown, Michigan. We'll end the stream on a great note. And thank you, everybody, for a fantastic stream. We will see you back here Tuesday night at 7:30 for the College Basketball Developer Dynasty. Wednesday night, we will have the WSBA stream, our online league that we're running for Wolverine Studios for Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball 2021. We might move that stream to 8 o'clock on Wednesday to accommodate the league members a little bit better. So 7:30 Tuesday for sure. Wednesday will probably be at 8 o'clock. And we'll probably have at least one more stream to wrap up the development on college football before we hit the final release, and then the game will be officially released, and it will be available on Steam as well at that point. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight, and have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you back here next week.